Thank you for joining me and my team this afternoon. Last week, I reported the results from the 2018 fourth quarter Bulletin of Statistics, which signaled positive growth for our economy. Today, I'm pleased to highlight some further good economic news for Bermuda. Before I release the data, I realized that there are those who do not speak in statistical terms. GDP, which is gross domestic product, is one of the primary indicators to measure the health of the economy. GDP measures the value of all goods and services produced in an economy in a given period of time, usually quarterly or yearly. The GDP statistics that I refer to are in constant prices, which reflect the value of produced goods and services, but it uses consumer and producer prices indices to remove the effects of rising price levels, which is inflation. This government highlighted in February 2018 that our second quarter constant GDP increased 0.8%, and the third quarter GDP increased 1.6% year over year. Today, I'm happy to report the 2018 fourth quarter GDP and constant prices indicates that our economy has experienced a third quarter of positive growth. Our 2018 fourth quarter GDP increased year over year by 1.5%. In other words, $1.15 billion. In other words, if you add the value of all final goods and services produced in the fourth quarter, it comes to $1.15 billion. Here are a few of the year-over-year highlights from the fourth quarter GDP publication. Growth was driven mostly by an increase in the net surplus on trade in goods and services like financial services. This surplus balance on trade in goods and services increased by 24.8%, which equates to $30.4 million. Gross capital formation, which reflects investment in construction and machinery and equipment, increased 1.5%. I also wish to share some results from the February 2019 Consumer Price Index. The consumer price, which is called CPI, is a measure of the change in the price of the baskets of consumer goods and services. CPI normally includes food, rent, transportation and foreign travel, health, and personal costs. Here, the level of inflation decreased 0.2 percentage points from 1.3% measured in January to 1.1% in February 2019. The lower rate of inflation is good for households, as the rise of the cost of consumer goods and services slowed in comparison to January 2019. Some other areas of note for the February CPI: between January 2019 and February, the average cost of goods and services in CPI was unchanged. The all item index remained as 105.2 in February. As I indicated last week, in spite of the empty criticism from some, overall, this government is making progress by implementing policies that will stimulate our economy. Our economic progress translates into good news for Bermuda overall. Thank you, and if you have any questions.
All right, members of the media, I'm just going to ask if you can use the microphone to share your questions with the minister. Tarek?
Minister, you state that the government has made progress on stimulating the economy. Does that mean we're on the road to returning to a state that we were in before the recession hit?
When you talk about going back to 2008, 2006, and 2007,
yes,
I can't say that's exactly where we will return, but we are making progress further than where we are currently right now. You may remember last year the government put in place a stimulus package. And what I mean by that is that we encourage business who come here, they'll be receiving a 3-year tax breaks for the employer. I can report that that number for individuals as far as is up over last year, and that's where the stimulation takes place. They buy goods and services, and so that's what has helped to, I believe, has impacted the economy.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Minister.
Yes.
Other team members. The final line of your statement, this government is making progress by implementing policies that stimulate our economy. Could you tell me which specific policies you're referring to?
Well, I just mentioned it. Last year in the budget, the minister mentioned that we will give tax exemption for employers who hire new individuals. That number had to be taken as of March 31st. So any increase in staffing from April 1st going forward, matter of fact, we only implemented, I believe, in July or August last year. I can tell you that number has increased by just under 200 people. And so that's why I believe as far as one of the packages we have put in place.
Okay. That's one policy, though, right? The statement refers to policies, plural. Are there others that you can point to?
Well, I believe that the one of the products that we put in place as far as we're moving before the EU substance policies as far as the legislation to be put in place. I believe that legislation will have an impact on Bermuda. We are waiting to hear the results, but once it takes in fact, I believe that the growth in Bermuda will be much larger.
The final line from your prepared statement today, our economic progress translates into good news for Bermuda, pardon me. Overall, how would you describe Bermuda's economy today?
Well, it's not where we want it to be,
It's not.
but it's not where it was. That's why we talk about growth.
It's not where it was when.
2008. So, but where we wanted to go is where we're heading. Is we want to make some more further growth as far as growth in our economy. We need new jobs here for people to get further jobs in our economy. So that's where the government is focusing on.
How do you think Bermudians, by and large, feel about the state of the economy today?
I think there's some Bermudians who are still hurting. We understand that, and that's why we continue to push and meet and discuss future or current policy that we can implement to make things better for Bermudians overall.
From last week's, I guess it was last week you gave your last press conference.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you said, and forgive me if it ties into what we've already discussed, you said that this government's socio-economic policies are bearing fruit, and this is good news for Bermuda. Can you specify in that instance what socio-economic policies you were referring to?
Well, I think that's one of the things we just mentioned at the very beginning regarding encouraging employers to hire new individuals.
That related to the stats released last week then, too?
Yep. Mm-hmm. But this
Okay.
time I emphasize a little more so you can understand where we're coming from.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yep.
Other questions related to any other matters, items? No?
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, members of the media, for joining us this